What up, folks? The SEC Connect, man. We got myself, Nick, Nino's Corner Battle, Steven, and Jay Smith, man. Fellas, what's going on, man?
How we doing, Nino? How we doing, Jay?
Happy Wednesday, everybody. It's good to get back on here. How y'all doing?
Man, great. Hey, fellas. Folks, if you're tuned in, you guys want to know how hard we are working. Steven has a hard stop at 7. Jay's been at work too. Ty's getting married this weekend. I'm driving from Connecticut to Alabama. Chris just had a baby, and we're still giving you guys an episode, okay? Episode 17. Let's get into it, man. First topic, guys. Let's talk about this Georgia culture, man. Um, is Kirby letting his team run wild? What do you guys think about this, man?
I'll pass it to Jay first.
Looking through all of the articles and everything, man, it kind of goes back to the conversation that people have said is, you kind of got to have like some goonish type players in order to be successful and really win at the next level and really win at the championship level, right? I think it was who was it? Was it Michael Bennett that said that when he played for the Seahawks? He said you got to have a goon or two, somebody that don't care. Right,
Jay. You know what we call them. You know what Nino and I call them. We need a couple ag assault guys.
There you go. There you go. There you go. There you go. And I mean that's the statement that's been said by a few different players. And so at this point, it looks like Georgia's taking that a little too far. Now I understand that defense is quite dominant, and it seems like it's defensive players that keep getting in trouble. So I don't know what they're going to – they've got to find a way to suppress this because I know that a lot of Georgia fans are losing their minds saying, oh, this is calculated. This is done to try to hurt us, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, I mean, sure, you could say that, but if the stuff is actually happening, it's kind of a problem. Like you don't have an issue with that, but some people don't. It's kind of like the Burrow kid that just got into the transfer portal for Alabama. Mm-hmm. Rumor has he punched the strength coach. People are like, oh, we'll take him. I'm like, so you want a player that's willing to punch a coach when they get mad? Like
punch authority?
Right. Someone that just hates authority. I mean, I understand being against authority, but at the same time, if you're trying to develop and grow, you kind of got to listen to somebody. But they got a lot of work to do to fix everything internally, not only internally, but also PR-wise, because that is the best way to argue against Georgia. Sure, they're putting guys in the league, but you want your kid to go up there and end up getting arrested because he's around the wrong people? I mean, mamas and daddies are a little nervous about that because, other kids and peers are more influential at this age. I don't know if I want it around that myself personally, but that's just me.
Yeah. How about you, Steven?
So to Jay's point regarding PR, it's twofold. Number one, you guys hit that like button and subscribe to the SEC Connect. Make sure that's how we take attendance here. So please hit that like button. It helps our channel grow a lot. I think we just crossed 250. So if we can get to 300 subscribers and continue to build this platform before the season starts, that'd be tremendous. So help us with PR. But to Jay's point about PR in regards to Georgia, I do think that it is regardless of how some of the people there may say, hey, this is being blown out of proportion, or we don't have the same issues exacerbated compared to other big time programs. Like, why are we being singled out? I've heard some of those things from there. The bottom line is when you're at the top of the mountain and you have that spotlight on you, it does matter. And people will use this, we'll say quote unquote negative recruiting, but it's reporting the facts, right? When you have several players that have been accused of sexual assault, several players that have been involved in street racing aspects, and rest in peace to the young folks, a part of the Georgia program that passed away after their national championship celebration. So these are all things we have to factor in. Do I think that they're reaching the pinnacle of where Florida was? We talked about Swamp Kings and Urban Meyer on here. I don't think they're there. I don't think they're where Baylor was or where Alabama's even been at some points in the mid 2010s. However, optics matter. And in the age of social media and the age of all of the reporting we have, in the age of Twitter, it is a lot easier for all of us to get information. That's the other aspect, right? And so we have a lot more access to outlets and things that things that typically would have been covered up in the 2000s or the 90s or the 80s that we see in broad daylight now. And so this is, hey, some of the Georgia fans may be saying, are we being punished for our own success? Well, optics matter. And I will say this, last point before I pass it to Nino. There are a lot of good kids on Georgia. There's a lot of good kids that have left that program, gone to the league. Nolan Smith immediately comes to mind, guys that are high character guys, right? However, optics matter. Like Jay said, PR matters.
Yeah, man, exactly. And so, look, I want to address this question here. How does it compare to what's going on with A&M last season? It's much worse because there's a death. So we had a death of a player and a staff member, right? So when it comes to this, like you guys said, optics matter. Georgia is at the top as well. So of course, the heavy is the head that wears the crown, right? They have been the king of college football for the last 2 seasons. So understandably so, they're going to get all the eyes on them. But also, we're in a social media age where everything that happens is going to be, televised or Instagrammed or Snapchatted or Twittered. I mean, people are going to see what's happening. I'm just glad there wasn't social media when we were in high school, right? and I'm pretty sure Urban Meyer's glad that there wasn't social media heavy presence during those Florida teams. We're seeing like the outlash of things that have happened from the Florida seasons without social media, right? And so just imagine what would have been going on if we would have had social media. And here's Chris with a K. Chris, what is going on, my brother?
Look, it's not a show without me, man.
Wow.
We'll talk about that soon. But yeah, man, what's up?
We're talking about Georgia culture, man. Does Georgia have a culture problem? But Kirby does have to get some things straight. I don't know if it's either punishing the players for doing things that they're not supposed to do, or once stuff hits to the gets to the masses, you got to show some kind of force. But that stuff has to happen prior to getting to the masses, right? So,
Nino, can you put up Big Action's comment there about Jay?
Jay's face. Oh. Is that about the Florida comment? We're talking about
That's
media?
about the social media
comment. We don't need to go there. You can take Big Action's comment down right now because we don't need to talk about that. All I'm saying is, and I kind of wanted to jump in with what you were saying, is that even with the optics piece, the other big issue is that we're seeing a trend. Like you had the situation with the death that was very much unfortunate, but now we're hearing about other street races that happen like afterwards. It's like, okay, now that now kids just being stupid, cool. And then you hear about this situation around the assault and it's like, oh, are we seeing a trend where it's going to keep coming down the line? I mean, I put it to you like this. Ain't nobody trying to make Georgia look bad. These kids are ending up in the news because they're literally getting arrested for stuff. They're getting caught up in stuff. That is a problem. It's not that people are just making up stories and throwing it out there.
It's happening.
We're seeing it happen. So that's, to me, the thing to worry about. It's trending in a very bad direction.
Exactly.
Chris?
So here's the thing about Georgia. It's an easy fix, okay? And the reason why I say it's an easy fix is because I hate to just throw myself into this, but I'll put it like this right here. I remember we lost a couple of games in a row. Coach wasn't too happy. Obviously, we lost to our rival, our rival team. Then what else happened? We had a couple of players that had snuck out, got caught on the cameras at the girls' dorms, different things like that, right? Coach, our coach, he would put it all on that player, where that player would sit there for an hour, 45 minutes to an hour and watch us run. I mean, we're running all types of stuff. We're doing drills like that. Let's call it the Native American drill to be PC, but basically we're running with a 10 pound, ball weight over our heads, for 8 minutes straight, people having to basically, run in place, and you're having to keep up and keep a good pace. You're doing that for basically you're running miles inside of a gym, it's stuff like that. Stadium stairs, it's stuff like that. Hold those people accountable. I mean, it's an easy fix. Every team, don't let people fool you. Every team has their boneheads, and they have guys on their team that are designated. They're always going to do something stupid, whether it's, drugs, whether it's just being a part of the same thing. I mean, guys, we've seen Alabama and Texas deal with the same thing with Jai Hall, right? Bonehead decisions off campus. I don't know what they're going to necessarily do. I don't know if it's a culture problem because obviously don't get me wrong, it's a lingering problem right now. But we got to see how long this stuff is going to last because you can tie this up and you can put people's scholarships on the line. I mean, you can basically say, you get caught with this, you're out. There's no excuses, no ins and outs, no anything.
But Chris, can I push back on one thing though? I agree from a disciplinary standpoint behind closed doors. I think we see that. Not we see that, but we understand behind closed doors. I'm sure Kirby Smart has had conversations or discipline. You brought up Ajayi Hall. We had DeMarvion Overshown get caught up with a very minor thing, and Steve Sarkisian disciplined him behind the scenes, but it was never brought up until a whole year later, right? And so those things happen behind the scenes. My thing though is that when it starts to become a trend of arrest, like Jay is saying, Kirby Smart's public reaction has been very, very laissez-faire, nothing to see here. Yeah. We're good. Everything's fine. Instead of having, not even saying a particular thing, but having a tone of, we will not tolerate this in Athens. This has to stop. I'm responsible. This is my program. His tone has been, to me, in my opinion, y'all can
defensive. He's been defensive.
And that's where I think that a lot of people have a problem with him.
No, he's taking a Jimbo approach to the whole thing of being overly defensive for no reason whenever he could just say, don't worry, problems will be fixed. I mean, just basically getting out ahead of it. The problem with Georgia is the fact that it took the unfortunate deaths of some innocent lives. It took the unfortunate deaths to actually bring spotlight attention to this, because while they were winning, nobody was complaining about what was going on, And so when that happened, that's whenever all eyes are on Georgia now with this going on. We all know, let's be real, as many jokes as we've thrown out there in the past, Kirby Smart's a hell of a coach, 2 back-to-back national championships. The talent on that roster is great, but you just got to look at, I would say it's more personnel. Now, I'm not talking about staff, but I just say, players, they're not holding themselves accountable at all, at least. I mean, they're 18, 19, 20-year-old kids out here, driving, demons, right? Driving the Hellcats, and stuff. And, they're out here just having fun doing all the rest of the stuff. You can only do so much to really reel in, college kids, because we're always going to make mistakes. I definitely know, because my freshman year, I made a lot of boneheaded mistakes myself. But at the same time, I don't know. I mean, Steven, you're right. I can't deny what you're saying, because he's been overly defensive for no reason. And plus, it just looks like there's been a lack of public discipline, or at least something that's been on the surface level that we can trace and we can say, yeah, no, it's going to get nipped in the bud, because he hasn't necessarily done that yet. And we don't know what protocols they have set up now going into this season. We have seen a small exodus of players, though. Bear Bryant was huge. I mean, that was a huge loss, but it was a necessary loss I believe to get attention, to get the attention of some of the players around there.
But this is my thing with this. How Kirby Smart is handling this kind of reminds me of how Jimmy Johnson handled how he coached the Cowboys, right? And so what I say, like that is, Jimmy Johnson said, I don't treat my stars like I treat other players. I treat them differently. And so this is the problem I think we have with sports in general, is that we put so much on winning, which it should be about winning, right? I mean, you are, a coach, but when you're at the college level, it's no kidding about winning, because it's big time sports and it brings the most money to some of these schools. But also, you're supposed to be cultivating student athletes, quote unquote, and I put those in big quotes, student athletes. But it's a business, and now it's really a business with NIL. And so it's how does Kirby Smart and every other coach balance winning and having a sound locker room? That's why you hear so many coaches talk about bringing in a culture, right? I want players that fit my culture, because we've all done some dumb stuff in college, but are we going 140 miles per hour down a downtown street in Athens, Georgia, where there's nothing there and people on the road?
Mhm.
You know, that's where, yeah, we do dumb stuff. Maybe get caught drinking a beer underage, you're not supposed to, or something like that. But when you're starting to put people's lives in danger, that's when is this player the right person for my culture? Yes, he's the right player to help me win games. You know what I'm saying? He's the right player to help me win games, but is he right for my culture?
And it's
So
hard to
that's a big
run that balance because I mean, let's just be real. I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of coaches out here. I'm just gonna be very candid with it. There's a lot of coaches out here that will tell you straight up, we need 4, 5, 6, 7 of them, but we may only be able to take 2 because we can't have them type of problems with in the locker room. We'll get canned real quick because this is not the university per se for that, right? And
Yeah.
so, I mean, trust me, I've heard it all. I mean, that's true. You know,
Yeah.
basketball. Hey, we got 15 scholarships we can give. We can have 2, 3, maybe 4, but we can't have a whole roster.
I can have 2 knuckleheads.
Yeah, we got 2. No, let's just call it that. I got 2
But I need
knuckleheads.
13 culture guys. I need
But
13
I
culture
need a
guys.
couple of culture guys in the locker room because I can't have that. I mean, and we see it in basketball an awful lot. You go to the JUCO ranks, you'll see a lot of that where it's a team full of knuckleheads. But you go to that Division I level, that Division II level, and sometimes kind of on that NAIA level, depending on the caliber of team and program that's out there, you don't see that many. But with Georgia, and especially with these new rules that just they're coming about now, where hell you're gonna see people signing 100 players to their classes now. And they're gonna take chances on these guys simply because they know what type of talent they are, but they know what kind of background that they come from as well. You can't sit there and tell me that some of these problems are not going to kind of be calculated by a lot of these coaches, especially when they know they're going to Broward County or tough neighborhoods in Chicago or whatever, or the toughest places in Georgia or whatever to recruit these kids. I mean, that's just kind of common sense that these problems come with it. How long of a leash do you have? And then also as far as just, letting them just kind of do them. And then what roadblocks are you setting up for them to kind of prevent them from doing this anyways? So that's what the coaches have to really realize. I mean, or understand.
Yeah, that's a true statement too. And then also, Chris, what I want to piggyback on that is with these multi-million-dollar schools, what programs are they putting in place to help transition some of these kids that have never had nothing into big-time sports? So you're bringing a kid from, let's say, inner city Dallas or Houston, and he's coming down to Athens, Georgia, or he's coming from, Bankhead up in Atlanta and he's going to Athens, Georgia, and he might not have had the best structure. Now I'm giving this kid $150,000 to come play at Georgia. What structure do you have in place? What programs do you have in place as a big time school to help these kids mature and transition into being the man now with a pocket full of money, right? Or knowing that this is the right thing to do and this is not the right thing to do. Because sometimes these kids just don't know, like they've never had nothing. So when they do get it, now it's time I'm going to flex a little bit because I've never had the opportunity to do it. So
there's an education, there's an education across the board that, just has to occur. You have to make the effort. You can't, I mean, at the end of the day, once the money gets in hand, the money's in hand, you're going to do what you're going to do.
Yeah.
You're going to make decisions, right? They used to have the rookie symposium courses for NBA and NFL. I mean, they still do, but it's the same thing now in college, even from making that transition from high school. But you can only give them tools. I mean, even Georgia, like they have a service, just like pro players, where if you get too drunk or you're caught up somewhere, call this number, we'll come get you. But yet somebody, right. Is that enforced?
Are they pushing it? That's the thing.
Right.
But I think they have it in the military as well, but how many people actually use it in the military?
Use the service.
You know what I'm saying? Like it's almost made fun of if you use it. And I wonder if that's something that's happening at some of these colleges. Like, hey, get the Uber ride. That's a free ride from a staff member. right? But nah, I don't want to do that because I'm going to look like a punk. I can't drive my Hellcat's going to stay in the strip club parking lot overnight. I don't want that to happen, right? You see it all the time in the military, right? So, it's just a matter of how much is it being enforced, and is it being enforced enough to look like it's not a bad thing to do, right? Like utilize it.
I'll swing this. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead.
I just wanted to make one quick point because I know we're getting ready to transition into recruiting talk and how this kind of bears in. I think that's why you're starting to see some kids coming from some situations that are picking smaller schools, and not let me rephrase.
No, you're right.
Smaller, better areas
Smaller
and
brands.
locations,
Smaller brand schools,
right? Where they feel more comfortable. And they don't have to be. I mean, you're seeing some of these programs right now that are getting kids. I mean, let's just be real. We're competing head to head. Both our schools are competing with Texas Tech over recruits and whatnot, and picking environments that are not the big city or the big college town per se compared to a Georgia or Athens or Austin or a city school. Because they're more comfortable being in a smaller environment where there's maybe 3 or 4 bars and it's very, very condensed. When my cousin was being recruited, Sam Houston State ended up being a better fit for him than SMU, being in Dallas, right? With around all that traffic, SMU, he felt more comfortable at Sam Houston State Country School. He could drive his truck and he was chilling. So I think some of these kids are also starting to wake up to that as well from a recruiting standpoint.
Well, I was just my last point that I was going to add, and I think Jay can back me up. I was going to swing this to him, but I think that's the importance of the SOUL program here at OU. It's the fact that you got those guys there. Not only you got former players that are talking to them, talking them through it, like, hey, we've been through this. We know what he's doing on the field, but off the field as well, you can talk to them. I mean, look. Both our schools. One thing I can say that I'm glad that we're not hearing is news in these summer months. Exactly. Only news I want to know about is whether somebody, if we're injury free and things are looking good going into the season for us, because I mean, especially with OU, we've had some problems and we've missed a lot of key players, But I mean, like Jay, like I said, I think the SOUL program is a big thing because you got those guys there establishing those connections with those kids from day one, from the time that they're recruited all the way to the time that they sign their letter of intent. And then when they show up on campus, those kids are there to say, hey, look, I'm not your coach. I'm not talking to you even as a former player for these coaches. I'm talking to you as I'm here for you. If you need to talk about it, if you're struggling with something or you're doing something that is this or that, talk to me so we can try to get this figured out, because I think that's what kind of goes home. But a lot of it's not just OU. I mean, hell, pretty much got that from Clemson. Other places, there's other big time programs that have things like that set up to where they're trying to help kids. At the end of the day, you got to hold your own self accountable. And if you don't, and you just don't care, and you just live in that lifestyle, it just kind of is what it is. It's going to happen. It doesn't matter really how many roadblocks you can put in. I mean, hell, we saw what Jerry Jones did for Pac-Man, Pac-Man Jones. I mean, stuff is still going to happen. You know what I'm saying? You're going to bleed through the cracks eventually. You still going to get in the fight. You still going to do this or whatever. It happens. But to the main point, I mean, to really answer the question, Kirby has to hit this. His next 3 moves with this whole thing they have to be spot on. He can't miss a beat with this. He can't afford to do that. Obviously, Georgia keep him there because he's winning national championships. He's in the national championship picture and scene. But as far as what he does with this publicly to save Georgia's rep and the football program's rep, because recruits watch and their parents watch even more, he's going to have to fix his problem. He's got to be spot on with that.
Yeah. So to talk about recruits, that kind of brings us to our next topic, folks, is recruiting updates. And as bad as the press that, Kirby Smart has been getting over the last 6 months, they got the number 1 class in the country with 23 recruits. They just got a hell of a tackle too that everybody in the country, was wanting, which is Daniel Calhoun. He's the top tackle in the state of Georgia, one of the top tackles in the country. They got the number 1 quarterback, I think, in the 2024 class as well. So
Dylan.
Dylan's a monster. So with all the talk about the culture, he's still able to bring in the number one class so far with 23 recruits. He's head and shoulders above everybody. So yeah, let's talk about the recruiting updates. Georgia pulls in Daniel Calhoun, a big 6'7", 360-pound tackle who's probably one of the most versatile players on the offensive line in this year's class. He can slide down to guard as well, play both sides, right tackle, left tackle. Just an outstanding player. The second team I kind of want to talk about too after Georgia is Texas A&M. And the recruiting that they've been doing here over the last couple weeks has been freaking insane. But we'll start off with Georgia, man. Jay, I want to get your thoughts on Georgia's tackle that they got, man, Daniel Calhoun.
Oh, yeah, Daniel Calhoun's a monster. But you know what's fascinating? When I go through and look at the actual prospects in Georgia now, the number one there on there, he doesn't count to me because when he was recruited, he's from Arizona. Yeah. And Dylan Raiola, he just moved to Buford, Georgia, which was a smart, strategic move by him and Georgia because there's 2 5-star players there at Buford, Georgia, at Buford High School at Buford, Georgia, that Georgia would love to get, but Alabama has been snatching as of late, which is KJ Bolden as well as Edric Houston. And KJ is expected to do his commitment, I think, in the next few days. Edric does not have a timeline, but Edric looks like he's crystal ball, possibly go to Ohio State. And KJ, even though people are thinking Georgia, I've heard that Bama is really hardcore going after him because they got Caleb Downs last year from Buford, Georgia. My point is that Georgia hasn't done a very good job of recruiting in the state of Georgia. Like, they have not gotten very many top players lately. And even in this cycle right now, you've got Sammy Brown, who went to Clemson, Edric Houston's crystal ball to Ohio State. That's number 4, number 5. Landon Thompson's gone to Florida State. Aaron Nolan's at Ohio State. Cameron Davis at Florida State. Miles Graham is at Florida. And then you finally get to the 10th player in the state, Nye Carr. There's your Georgia player. So it's just wild to me how it seems like the struggle is getting players in state to want to go there. I'm wondering if a lot of these in-state players are trying to get out of Georgia and do something different just because of how busy of a state it is, especially when you get to the Atlanta Metroplex. But, I mean, outside of that, I'm truly curious to what Georgia's going to do as far as really pushing to get KJ Bolden, if they're going to be able to land them. Because overall, right, like you mentioned, they got the top class. They're killing it on the recruiting trail. But they're also – and they're getting 5-stars from other states.
Yeah.
It's crazy how they're not being able to pull them from in-state. It's just wild to me.
Hey, Jay, so one thing about the in-state recruiting that, I want to talk about is when it comes to Georgia not being able to pull those in-state guys, I think the problem that Georgia has is that Georgia, Alabama, Mississippi, and Florida are all so close together.
Right there. Right.
So these kids can go to – a school in Florida or Alabama, and their mom can still drive, 3 hours and see them play, or 4 hours and see them play. So it's not that big of a difference. Like in a state like Texas, right? For instance, if you get a kid from Dallas, he can go up to Oklahoma because it's just a 3.5-hour drive, right? He can go to LSU, but like the Houston area, it's only 3 hours away from that state. But those Dallas kids, they kind of tend to want to stay in the state of Texas or go to OU because there's proximity to mom, right? Yeah. So there's that opportunity. But when you're in Georgia, you're right, man. They can't keep that top talent because I just think they got really good brands around them that are doing great things right now. Of course, Alabama's winning championships too. Florida is a great brand. I think Florida's going to get back on track here the next couple of years. But, they can leave the state, go make their mark, and still have their family come see them play.
No, I get that, but I think the thing that's wild to me about it is you seeing them go to Ohio State. Like that's not mama up the street around the corner.
Yeah.
Clemson. I mean, Clemson's not bad, but Clemson's
not that far.
5 to 6 hours. I mean, it's still a trek. It's just fascinating how it makes me.
Hey, hold on. Let Steven go. Steve, when y'all mentioned Florida, Steven's face got a little bit.
No, it wasn't even about it wasn't necessarily about Florida. To the Georgia point, Georgia is as fertile recruiting ground from a high school football perspective as there is in the country. So you have a lot of these programs like Clemson, especially what Clemson did in, say, the late 2010s. They have set up recruiting pipeline there in Georgia. Alabama, Jay just broke down the pipeline that Alabama has set up there. Ohio State sounds weird. I get it. However, it's the same thing we dealt with. Nino knows exactly where I'm going. It's the same thing we dealt with here in the state of Texas when Ohio State came in here and took
JT Barrett, everybody,
Okuda and Baron Browning, and Dobbins, right? Like all at once. Everybody's going, right? And so some of these folks, even us now, Texas, who's our main man over there on our staff recruiting that area? It's Tashard Choice. Our best volume guy is in that region, which means Ohio State's best volume guy is in that region. Clemson's best volume guy is in that region. Georgia is as difficult a state to lock down. I'm old enough to remember the beginning the beginning part of 2010s, when Spurrier started locking up Georgia at South Carolina.
That's true.
Yeah. That's true.
Think about
he went from Florida to South Carolina and was yanking Georgia boys. You right?
South Carolina was eating at that point.
That is true.
Yeah. So it's a really difficult state. I mean, that's such fertile recruiting ground in Georgia.
I mean, the same could be said. I think the same could be said for Florida, especially whenever all three schools are down, and we've seen them be down at the same time, pretty much. When one of those teams is hot, I mean, don't get me wrong, those kids grow up, wanting to go there. But when one of the teams is hot, then a lot of the recruits trend towards that one. But there's a lot of good ball coaches there in the state of Florida itself, with UCF, being a formidable, alternative. And then also, there's times where South Florida is pretty dang good and can get some kids as well. So I think those states for me are hard to lock down. And obviously, I know Lincoln Riley wants to lock down California, but I think that Cali is a hard state to lock down too, because it's so
good, especially Southern Cal. Yeah.
So, and that's the reason why those are hotbeds for recruiting. Go ahead,
Chris. If you look at the 2020 national championship game, if you look at the starting lineups, Alabama's secondary, every single person was from Broward County.
See what I'm saying?
Serious.
You see what I'm saying?
Louisiana seems to be the one state where
they lock it down.
They do.
I
agree.
They lock it down. Usually,
man, it's those Mardi Gras colors, man.
You get a kid out of Louisiana. You sitting there like, hey, you did a hell of a job. Like, you were my best recruiter this year.
Yeah,
it's the Mardi Gras colors, man. It's like it hypnotizes all them kids to think they got to go to LSU, and they do. And then they show out and they go pro. It's just annoying, man.
But also, looking at the city of Atlanta, right? You get a lot of implants that come to Atlanta. So, a lot of these folks didn't grow up as Georgia fans. You might have kids whose parents are Alabama fans. Like my sister-in-law went to Alabama. My other sister-in-law went to Alabama. They both lived in Atlanta for years. So they're huge Alabama fans. Their children were born and raised in Georgia. They went to Alabama to college. They paid out-of-state tuition fees to go play it out. I mean, to go to Alabama when Georgia was literally up the street and about a third of the cost, right?
Yeah, that's true.
So a lot of people that live in Atlanta and around that area where a bunch of talent's coming from, they are not Georgia like through and through. They come from somewhere else. Louisiana's different. We don't have an Atlanta, right? So when you're born and raised in Louisiana, you grew up in Vivian, Louisiana, Oil City, New Orleans. People who live in New Orleans they live there their entire lives. They never leave New Orleans. Baton Rouge, they don't go. So they grow up as LSU fans their entire life, and that's where they want to go.
No, I mean, I think that if you go back to the recruitment of 2019 class for us with getting Jaden Hazelwood. Mm-hmm. For better or for worse, I mean, hell, he was the number one, wide receiver in that class. OU gets him, and that's perfect example of what you're saying. He was an implant. I mean, hell, he has serious ties to OU and Oklahoma. I mean, his family's from here. So, yeah, I mean that's definitely factual.
Exactly.
That's fascinating too.
There was a question in the chat. There was a question in the chat. It says, I don't consider IMG kids as Florida kids. I agree with this. them and to a certain degree, Bishop Gorman, it's more about where the parents are from and where the kid is from or whatever original high school he was at. I don't consider IMG kids Florida kids outright. So I do agree with that. I just wanted to make that comment.
I can see that with Bishop Gorman too. That makes sense.
Yeah.
A bunch. Yeah, you know, a lot of those academies and places like that. Nah, those kids ain't from there.
Yeah.
So if you can get a scholarship from a school, you probably ain't. You know what I'm saying? You get a scholarship in high school, you probably not from there, bro.
Exactly. All right, folks. One more thing. Let's talk about Texas A&M's recruiting. Man, Texas A&M just picked up big Cam Coleman, man, from Phoenix City, Alabama. And I'm telling you, out of nowhere, he is the number 10 player in the country, the number 1 player in the state of Alabama. Alabama has been losing top players over the past couple of years too as well from that state, which is a little weird too. Yeah, Chris, go ahead, man.
I'll start this one off. So here's the interesting thing for all the jokes, and don't get me wrong, they are well deserved. Okay. You know, as much crap as we give each other about our teams or whatnot, we can actually say at least we've won things that have, you know, actually mattered. I would say some of us, but still, what I would say about Texas A&M is this: Texas A&M they have really good coaches, and they have even better recruiters. Obviously, the money is what stands out and it pokes out like a sore thumb. But I'd say, I mean, they got some damn good coaches. I mean, we were just talking about it on Monday, right? With Ty,
with
Ty. I mean, Texas A&M has some damn good recruiters, man. I mean, and for me especially, don't get me wrong, y'all may know more about their classes than I do as far as the kids, but I know they stack classes, but they stack classes mainly on the defensive line, in my opinion. There's spots that are open there for them to plug and play. Y'all taking Anthony Hill or whatever last year or whatnot. I mean, they have some voids that they need to fill, and especially with them losing some of those wide receivers that they lost last year, they have some positions that they need to fill and they need to fill immediately because. I'm not gonna say they don't have talent all around, which we know. I mean, they get 5 stars out the wazoo. But what I'm saying is they put a lot of emphasis on the trenches per se, especially on the defensive line. Where you look at a lot of the other positions, you're like, dude, either they're losing somebody to the draft, or they just have positions to fill, and that's what I feel like. I feel like they're going to be able to always be able to get talent because it's a revolving door there. Somebody's transferring, somebody's going to the draft, somebody's graduating, and somebody's just out. And really, most likely, is probably the first 2, to be honest with you.
Man, it's that dude, man. Elijah Robinson, man. He's that dude. Yeah. And he has basically ascended himself in the ranks at 38 years old to be up there with the Larry Johnsons, the Freddie Roaches of the world, just being able to just about snatch anybody he wants. I mean, he's picking up wide receivers, offensive linemen, defensive linemen.
Weston Davis.
Right.
It's just like they got the number 1 Weston Davis. They got the number 1 tackle in the state. He's a top 5 tackle in the country. You know, they got him. They got the other kid from Silsbee on the line. What's his Evans? You know, man, getting Cam over there from from Phoenix City, Alabama. I mean, they're stacking talent. And I think Chris was right, though. They're stacking it in the right spots, especially on the defensive line. Their defensive line it's got to be either, I'm not going to say the top in the SEC because Georgia has that, but they're right up there, you know, probably second or third in the conference. All right.
Talent-wise, because production-wise, hell, if you want to put them up there, production-wise, no.
Yeah.
I do want to make the comment about the defensive line. I don't think I've been on here since it happened, but our condolences and everything, and rest in peace to Coach Terry Price, who was their defensive end coach. I don't think we've had a chance to even touch on it since he passed, but that is a very sad thing, and a lot of people didn't know a lot of people didn't know he had cancer, so it's really, really sad. He's somebody that was very well liked and very well respected in the college football community. It's a big loss in College Station because, to the point you guys are talking about with the talent that's down there, he was a relationship builder. right? And so a lot of these kids that the talent they've assembled, Elijah Robinson's that guy. I completely agree with what Jay's saying, and he's been recognized by 247 and On3 as a super recruiter, tenfold. We understand that, but Coach Price was one of those guys that would come put his arm around you, cook, and what I said earlier, what we were talking about earlier regarding control and culture of the program and taking care of kids, that's a guy where a kid comes to visit and he does feel at home. And that was Coach Price was a big part of that. I will say, on a, from a football note too, the Cameron Coleman, that this is an Auburn issue. Somebody commented earlier, that wasn't all of the mods and all these people that cover recruiting. Y'all correct me if I'm wrong. Weren't they all calling this for Auburn, other than the A&M people?
Yeah, they had a lot for him going to Auburn.
It was like one. It came out of left field that A&M ended up winning this battle. I'm just like, wait, A&M? All I've been reading was Auburn. Bananas that they're able to go snatch them right out of that state.
And that kid can probably play right away. I mean, he has the size. He's 6'3", 190 pounds already.
Yep, he's already there. Like Denver Harris was last year. Could you go immediately walk in and play day one?
Yeah, so you pair him up with Evan Stewart and, you got Ruben Owens in the backfield and Connor as the quarterback. I mean, A&M got talent, man. They just got to, if they can shore up the coaching, that's the thing.
Nino, I told you this when we did the 2024 schedule review, and we kind of looked at everybody's schedule for 2024. We both, I think we came to a consensus there. I know Chris kind of disagreed that day, but they're on paper, A&M, that's kind of set up to be the year, if you think about it.
This is their year. This is their year.
2024, I mean, because this year they have to turn it around. You're saying this year is their year?
Yeah, because, hold on, isn't Evan Stewart a junior this year or a sophomore?
No, he's a sophomore.
You're right. 24 is their year.
24 is their year because that's when he'll be draft eligible. Connor Weigman will be draft eligible. They'll probably still have Moose Muhammad. By that time, DJ Hicks should be ramped. Overton, think everybody on the defensive line should be fully ramped. Think about it.
They should be
they'll probably still have Bryce Foster on the offensive line. Like, there's that team for 2024. If you just look at the names we just ran off, that's kind of ridiculous going into that season.
Does that make y'all nervous a little bit? Or what?
No.
That make y'all nervous? Like I said, nervous? What? You know what I'm saying?
No.
That's a lot for Kelvin Banks to try to hold off. What's going on, man? What's going on that make y'all a little bit nervous?
Well, what's going on is what I'm talking about for A&M. Yeah, what I'm talking about for A&M in 2024 is what's expected of Texas in 2023. That's what I'm saying. What's expected of Texas
it's basically,
in 2023. Yeah.
We need you to basically piss it off the pot. So, yeah, you're 100% right. You got to show us.
Hey, for as much crap as we give Sark, at least Sark is notoriously a 9-win coach.
Jimbo Fisher
is notoriously.
He don't.
I'm just being real. If we, I'll give Sark that. We're gonna give him flack for not winning 10 games. Then we got to definitely give Jimbo something, because outside that national championship, what else has he done?
I mean, the title that he got off of the back of the late grade, Jameis Winston and Bobby Bowden. That roster was really Bobby's squad. It was
a loaded roster.
It was loaded.
It was loaded.
They had a loaded year, and then the next year they didn't do very well, and then after that it just started to. He left because they realized.
Yeah.
No, this guy.
Hey, side question with that. Are we convinced that look? I think Norvell's is a good coach. I think he's. I think he's a hell of a coach.
I think he's a hell of a coach.
Are we convinced that he's turning the program around, or do we have to see him actually, be consistent, make a playoff this year? Because I mean, this is their year. If any year was their year, it's going to be this one.
I mean, I think it's obvious they're turning the program around. I think they proved that last year. I think if you're saying if they're going to get back to where Florida State was when we were coming up, where Bobby Bowden had it year over year. Yeah, I mean, yeah, they gotta be in the ACC championship game and competing for the ACC, in my opinion, because right now it still runs through Clemson. I mean, let's just be honest.
And the ACC, let's be honest. ACC is really soft right now. I mean, let's be honest. It's not the toughest conference.
It's top heavy.
Clemson.
It's like the Big Ten right now. It's very top heavy. You got 2 schools and everybody else.
Clemson, North Carolina, and Florida State should be competing against each other for who's going to get the top spot. And those 3 teams should be interchanging who's going to win between. That's it. I mean, Forest, no. North Carolina State, no. You know?
I was looking at that schedule today. Just another side note. This is going to be that's going to be interesting for them because they have 4 games where they play. They play on the road. There's 4 games, and those are back-to-back road games, right? And the first one is they got to go to Boston College 3rd week of the season. Then they go to Clemson 4th week.
And I say that'd be a good back-to-back.
But BC,
they should beat the hell out of Boston.
They should beat BC.
But that's Boston College.
That's a vacation.
Boston College should come out there. They could make it a little bit interesting.
No,
if they're overlooking the game.
Zay Flowers plays for Baltimore Ravens now. They're going to be fine against BC. All right.
Fair point. Touche.
No, that's a fair point. But all I'm saying is that they have Boston College, and then they go on the road to Clemson early in the season. They're gonna get a little bit of a good test. Those at least those 2 games, the 3rd and 4th game of the season.
That Clemson Florida State game is gonna be it.
That's gonna be that's the 3rd game of the season, right, Chris?
That's the 4th game of the season. They play LSU the first one, then they come home and play everybody at your mama's house. And then they play Boston College on the road, and then they play Clemson.
So Chris, you're telling me in their first 4 games they got LSU and Clemson.
Yeah.
Yep. Let me add to that. The end of season, they go to Wake Forest, they go to Pitt, and then they go to Florida. Like, man, their road schedule is wild. I mean, of course, LSU's a neutral site game, which is closer to them, so it's in Orlando, which is beneficial.
Come on, man. That's a home.
But the rest of these road games, I mean, we laugh at Wake Forest, but they have a tendency of actually winning games that you're not supposed to. They just show up. It's like, where is this coming from?
Yeah, Wake Forest was recently
Pitt's
in
the
the
same
ACC
way.
title game.
Right. Pitt too. Pitt was there 2 years ago. And so
Pitt won it 2 years
shows
ago.
up. There you go. And then you've got and then they travel to Florida to end the season.
To that front door no more.
I mean, yeah. Neither is Kenny Pickett in the fake slide. The fake slide ain't pulling up either, though. So
I agree with Danny. Syracuse is solid, though. Syracuse was good last year, and they always, for whatever reason, Syracuse always plays Clemson like tough.
They're like an every other year team. They're like an every other year team with Syracuse. It's like they have a good year, then a bad year, then a good year, then a bad. It'd be random. They're very much at random.
So I mean, while we're on the topic, obviously you guys have talked about that. Jay has the schedule right in front of him. Nobody's going to talk about Miami.
Who?
Why?
Okay.
Why?
Have they executed anything? Look. Miami is in the exact same space I have for A&M as well as Texas. It's
and
just
they play each
the
other
difference.
early.
And the difference is we know Texas, we've seen them win games. So they're different in this, but they still need to prove with the talent that they have on that roster, you got to get me 10 wins. More. You got to give me 10 wins. You have no excuse anymore. They have accumulated so much talent. Give me my 10 wins. Florida State's the same way. I have all 4 of them in this. I will believe it. I will give props when I see it on the other side. Give me my 10 wins because and when you look at their schedules, there's absolutely no excuse to not get them because it's literally like a beeline to 10 wins.
I don't see 10 wins on Miami's roster in terms of their personnel, but I'm saying that quietly in this space because I don't want to go on Twitter and say that because those people are crazy.
They're lunatics. They are.
That's right. They got it on video now. 4K.
Oh, they actually do. Yeah, that's true. Yeah, we got you in 4K, bro.
I don't want no smoke from y'all. Y'all got it.
Oh, man. Sorry, folks. Look, we talked about everything. I know Steven has a hard stop here at 7 o'clock, man. Folks, I got a hard stop too. I don't know if you guys heard, but I've been driving. I drove 13 hours today from Connecticut. I'm in Knoxville, Tennessee right now. Racketop, whatever you want to call them.
Yep.
Oh,
wow.
that burnt orange for that bright orange, didn't you?
Shit, no. I am on my way to Montgomery, Alabama tomorrow, so we had to get a quick episode in, man. But Chris has the brand new baby, so I'm surprised Chris is even on. Chris is just getting
it's a break.
I had to make sure this wasn't an all Texas thing today. In the comments they've been trying to come for us or whatnot. Y'all gonna get y'all's, y'all gonna be ready this year. Trust me. The content is about to get crazy, y'all.
Oh man, I can't wait for season
starts. I've been having epiphanies. I've been having dreams about 1 or 2 losses on y'all schedule that we just sitting here like, how did that happen? And trust me, I'm gonna be here on the back end of that. You and Steven need to be prepared for the season. Because it's a lot of Kool-Aid that y'all drinking. Wink, wink. There's a lot of Kool-Aid that y'all drinking right now.
I'm not even going to address Chris right now. I need to.
They just lucky that Georgia off the schedule. Y'all got that little cupcake ass non-conference schedule. Yeah.
Hey, don't hate the player, hate the game. You wanted that too.
I didn't want that. We kept Alabama, but y'all don't got Florida no more.
It's not like we had a choice. We got told. Daddy told us we couldn't do it no more.
Yeah,
that's what happened. Daddy SEC said, "Nah, y'all, because we ain't gonna be able to reciprocate. So y'all not gonna take the advantage of them like that." No.
I have to make a quick comment here. Surfer Boy is here now. Surfer Boy, for those who don't know, is a diehard Georgia fan, and he's been with us since Texas played Georgia. He joined my channel as a subscriber when Texas defeated the Georgia Bulldogs in the 2019 Sugar Bowl. So I want to give a shout out to Surfer Boy. I know, Surfer Boy, you're going to be disagreeing with a lot of the stuff we say. Nobody drinks the Kool-Aid down there in Athens more than you do. But I do respect your opinion, brother. Please comment. And all you guys, comment, like, subscribe, help us grow the platform. We're trying to get over, I think right now the next goal is 300 subscribers. Yeah, so let's get over 300 subscribers. Subscribe to the SEC Connect. Help us as content creators. Join us.
Join it, man.
Fun ride.
Whatever, Chris.
Yeah, right, it's giving us additional stuff to do so y'all can have additional conversations with us instead of just the standard content we make around our favorite teams. It's always fun to collaborate and have more conversations. So we want y'all to, join that channel too.
Hey, before we get out of here, in the chat, man, if you love what we do, man, show us some love. Put Boomer in the chat. We out, man.
Ciao, please.